Thanks for checking in. My name is Brian Brophy, and now Monday Morning Critic podcast.
In the Wild West world of podcasting, there is one podcast that is authentic and genuine and continues to stand tall in its originality. Based on a passion for his guests, their work, and his love of podcasting, Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic podcast get amazing, diverse, unique guests found nowhere else. The variety and quality are endless. There is something for everyone. Derek Thomas is the hero you deserve. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector. Welcome to Monday Morning Critic podcast. Here is Derek Thomas.
Please sit down. Ellis Boyd Redding, your files say you've served 40 years of a life sentence. You feel you've been rehabilitated?
Rehabilitated? Well, now let me see. You know, I don't have any idea what that means.
Well, it means you're ready to rejoin society.
I know what you think it means, Sonny. To me, it's just a made-up word. A politician's word, so that young fellas like yourself can wear a suit and a tie and have a job. What do you really want to know? Am I sorry for what I did?
Well, are you?
There's not a day goes by I don't feel regret. Not because I'm in here, because you think I should. I look back on the way I was then. A young, stupid kid who committed that terrible crime. I want to talk to him. I want to try to talk some sense to him. Tell him the way things are. But I can't. That kid's long gone, and this old man is all that's left. I gotta live with that. Rehabilitated. It's just a bullshit word. So you go on and stamp your form, Sonny, and stop wasting my time. Because to tell you the truth, I don't give a shit.
Brian Brophy is a professor, director, and actor whose filmography includes Armageddon, Cradle Will Rock, Star Trek Next Generation, The Measure of a Man, and the greatest movie in cinematic history, The Shawshank Redemption. Brian, so happy to finally have you on the show.
Thanks for inviting me, Derek. I love it.
Yeah. So you're born. I'm putting together your early life, right? So born in Illinois, and then you kind of find your way to the St. John's Military Academy in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Was that how early on was that in your life, Brian? Where you attend St. John's?
Well, you got the military academy thing there. Yeah, I grew up in Northbrook, Illinois, is the northern suburb of Chicago, and about 14 to 17 years of age, I ended up at St. John's Military Academy in Delafield, Wisconsin, and I played baseball and golf and skied and got into American history and a little bit of science and parapsychology, as I was really into that. Took Spanish, and then we all moved to Montana, which is kind of an ancestral home for us. The Finches homesteaded there in the 1870s in Montana, and so we all ended up in Bozeman, Montana, where I ended up my illustrious high school career in Bozeman, Montana, at Bozeman Senior High School, and out of there ended up at the Montana State University in physiological psychology. That was sort of that academic track that I was on. Yeah.
So how is when you're at the military academy? Are you homesick a lot? Do you learn a lot about yourself, Brian, in your time there?
Oh my God, what a great question! No one's ever asked me that question before, Yeah, it's so funny that I have all these letters that I wrote back and forth to my parents, and there is such a simplicity to the letters. It's like, please send some oranges, so can when will you be coming up? I'm looking forward to the holidays. Can I bring a friend of mine home with me? Can you come up for the weekend, Daddy? Mama, can you come up and see me? So there, especially when you're the 15 years of age, and you're what is called a young, you're a new recruit, right? You're old boy, new boy. So you're a new boy, and you're learning a whole different way of behaving. Very strict, very orderly. Yes, sir. No, sir. Very early reveille. I can't say it. Reveille in the morning. It's like manic at like 5:30 in the morning. Like, wait a minute, this is way too early. And then, of course, lights out in the early evening. So the first year was really rough. I think the great thing is I made some excellent friends. Fernando from Costa Rica, and Eddie Lee, basketball players. So I made good friends as we progressed. But that sophomore and junior year, you get used to it, because you're so busy. I was taking rifle. They had, you could, so you had to you learn how to shoot an M14, and that was part of the skill that you had. You had to learn how to read maps and make your way. They throw you in a river and sort of make your way downriver. I mean, sure enough, that was easy. But in the springtime at high tide, in the springtime when all the waters, all the snow is melting, and you're going downriver, in southern Wisconsin, and then the men who were teaching us, a lot of them were from Vietnam. I mean, a lot of them were coming back. And so a lot of the stories that they told us in our junior ROTC classes and in our history classes, these were guys that had come back from Vietnam, 73, 74, that time period. And I learned a lot about the American War in Vietnam from them.
Right. And do you find when you go to Bozeman High School, I don't want to say culture shock because that's an overused term, I think. Do you find that it's drastically different from your time at St. John's?
Well, the main difference is there were women. There were young women there. Right. There were, so military school was all boys for 3 years. Right. And so that was the biggest adjustment. I also went with my brother. And we were, it was an adjustment. It was a big adjustment. And we were like the cool kids coming from Chicago. And, I was able to be with a lot of different groups, which was super fun. I didn't just have one group. I could go to and hang out with lots of different people because we were like the new kids in town. And so that was fun. I had a great time in high school. And yeah.
Yeah, and you seem from the research I've done, you seem like a guy who's just a total family guy. You're very much into your family. Do you find that, being that close to your family, do you find a correlation with how theater works? It's kind of especially I've seen a lot of the stuff you do and you're doing. It's very much you care about your students. You're very close to your students. I think they have a lot of respect for you. Do you find that being a father and that family dynamic is very similar to the dynamic in a stage environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. No one's ever asked me that either, Derek.
I'm pulling them out of a hat here today, Brian.
It's so good. It's so good. One of my happiest days was my first daughter. It's to have my wife and myself. I have two girls. They're 28 and 25 right now, and I couldn't be prouder of them. And I think being a father makes you patient, makes you more patient. It can be infuriating at times, and it's embarrassing for them sometimes to like be with me, because I like to have I have fun with them, no matter what my own kind of fun, where they have to learn what Dad thinks is funny. A lot of pratfalls, walking into signs, tripping in busy airports, things like that. They kind of get used to it over the years. But I think that part of raising kids and working with students, there's a corollary. Yeah, for sure. There's I think it comes from, I was an ADD kid, so I was like one of the first Ritalin children in 71, 72, before I went to military school. And so I think I look back sort of my journey and how I get to where I am right now. And I was one of those kids that really couldn't sit still a lot of the time. And so now that I'm older and, supposed to be wiser, I look and I think I want to give back to those students that probably are more on the neurodiversity spectrum, because I work with a lot of folks at Caltech and JPL and sort of my Caltech community, where there's a lot of people who have multiple levels of intelligence or frames of mind that Howard Gardner talks about. And I think, at an early age, being sort of singled out for that neurodiversity at that age in some way, I think helped to create a lot of empathy with other learners or other people. And then, of course, I got involved with theater, which really opened up a whole other world and realizing the community, the collaboration that's needed. And I think my neurodiversity, in that case, my ADD, was really kind of a superpower in some ways, because I was able to focus. Like, for example, right now we're doing a musical called From the Earth to the Moon. It's an adaptation of a Jules Verne 1865 novel. And I've got 25 people in the show. And I'm able, when I'm directing, to have a perspective on the stage picture, but also the individual images, and also be able to track the words or the lyrics or the movement in ways that really kind of fire all my cylinders, you know what I mean? And so I think all these things come together: being a father, being a director, having the ADD, like being able to work with people, not just these students, but, students in years past, whether it's in India or UC Riverside or Cal State LA or Pomona College or Art Center or wherever, you develop a skill that is a collaborative one, because theater is just a collaborative art. You have to be able to get along with people and allow all of their special gifts to rise to the surface as well, right? You don't want to shut anyone down, but you do have to help direct or finesse or find the subtlety of an expression in service of the play or the playwright, the thing, the object that you're making.
Yeah, and you talked about theater opening new worlds for you. Legitimately, Bosnia, India. Your theater has taken you places that most people never even dream of going. And we talk about your work at Caltech. I've had guests on, Brian, before where they're famous authors, actors, directors, and they've done a lot, like some really special work. And they go into the field of academia. They teach like you're teaching, and I almost 99% of the time feel like the students never ask them about, their big work with this or their huge accomplishment with that. But I have to say, I don't get that sense when it comes to you. I feel like your students really appreciate, of all the stuff you did, especially the Star Trek stuff, which we're going to touch upon. And it's such a perfect place to kind of bring Star Trek up, right? Caltech, a blend of science and the dramatic arts. I just feel like there's a lot there. Do you feel like your students are curious about your body of work as an actor?
Not really. I think when they realized, for example, I had one student that wanted to be involved with the costumes, right? She came to my office. She's like, "Oh, I really want to get involved we were thinking of doing steampunk 1860s, Jules Verne, goggles and boots, and the whole. And then we were talking, and then all of a sudden there was a card on my desk from Bruce Maddox, and then all of a sudden she looked at the card and she was like, "Are you Commander Bruce Maddox?" And I'm like, the character that I played, "You're Bruce Maddox?" Well, that's him. I'm Brian Brophy. I played a character there was, and oh my gosh, I can't believe, and everything kind of changed. On the one hand, she was excited to be involved with this musical, but then when she found out that I was, the real Bruce Maddox in Star Trek: The Next Generation, she goes, "Oh, you were in season 2, episode 6," and she even knew. I don't know if that's the right episode, but she even knew the episode that I was in. So when people do find that out, especially when I'm working at Caltech and JPL, that there is this, I don't lead with it. I never lead with it because I feel like it's so much of another lifetime in many ways, but it also something that's very recognizable for people, and it really has a special place in so many people's early lives. Like I remember being at a hotel in India, and they go, "Oh, Mr. Brophy, you must come to our hotel." And so I come and like, "Oh, we want to give you the suite," and like, really, why? "Oh, you were in Star Trek," and this one kid who was like the maitre d', the concierge, I guess. He goes, "Let me take you to your room," and he's like, "Anything you want, it's on the house, yada yada." And he said, "I grew up with Star Trek and my father on Saturday nights." It's not like he had a broken, like the marriage, I guess the parents weren't together, but he would have Saturday nights with his father watching The Next Generation. Wow. in the mid 90s or whatever it was for this kid. And it had such a special place in his life. And I've heard that from more than a few people. This young lady who is a Caltech undergrad who came to my office, she had the same experience with her father, watching the reruns, obviously, because she's a little bit older. But it was the same kind of experience. They had this really warm memory that they had with their family, and so that's when it really connects with me.
Yeah,
yeah.
And you're leaving out some really special moments because you did a wonderful podcast. I listened to the whole thing with, I think, a student named Mike. I thought it was a great.
Oh yeah.
And you did a wonderful. I didn't get a chance to see it, but a Zoom call with the episode that many kids. I know my Star Trek when it comes to the movies. I'm not. When it comes to the television part of it, I'm okay. I'm not great. Mm-hmm. But you did a Zoom call with. You did the episode Measure of Man with your students. I was just like blown away at how special that is.
Gosh, I totally forgot about that. Where did you even see that? Did Mike posted that? I guess he did. Was that part of the podcast?
I can't tell you where I get my information, Brian. I mean, I can tell you, but I can tell you how, as somebody who we're about to get into the work of yours that has moved me the most. But I have to say, for you to do that and give back to your students, Brian, I mean, that's just such a sweet thing.
Well, it was Mike. Yeah, Mike is a special human being. He's one of those. I mean, as a professor, as a teacher, as an educator, there are people that come through your life, and maybe you see them for 3 years, 4 years. I had one graduate student that I've known for 7 years, working on her PhD and starting the storytelling for scientists class that we were involved with. But Mike, there's just like a handful of folks that really kind of move you in a place that with such gratitude and with such ease of comfort that he had with other people, and how much he cared about other people, and how much he loved science and astronomy and astrophysics and bio. Well, what the heck does he do? He's thinking bio. Geobiologist. Like part of it is like SETI, looking at extraterrestrial intelligence too. That's part of what drives him in his search for finding out things about the universe. So Mike is a special guy. I love him so much. And I think he's working on his second postdoc right now on the East Coast.
Wow, very impressive. And I will say this last thing about Star Trek. I know people are furious that you are not in Picard. I mean, forget the students that you have. I mean, just Trekkies in general. Really disappointed that you're not a big part of that because your character and your character's, I would say, accomplishments in that series are kind of used in that first season in Picard. So if they ever hypothetically came to you, I mean, maybe they have. With NDAs and all this stuff going on, I'm not going to press you on it. But if they came to you, would that be something you'd consider or maybe consider? I feel like it's a little.
Well, I think that what. Well, I didn't actually watch the Picard. What I do know is that many of my friends who follow Star Trek pretty intensely and are friends of mine who come, they get information way before I do, because no one in Paramount or whoever produced this thing didn't pick up the phone and, make a simple phone call to find out that Brophy was the real Bruce Maddox on the Caltech campus, developing new musicals, right? So, and I was surprised that Patrick didn't, because we had a pretty good relationship. I got along with all those folks that worked on that. It was a really good episode. I mean, for me as an actor, it was just really be able to work with Patrick Stewart across from him and some of the other actors in that. But it was like a real challenge for me too, because he challenged me as an actor, the speaker of the British language in such a way that he would have all of the consonants and all of the emotion in there. And I'm an American trained actor, and so a little bit different, but nonetheless, I mean, those scenes I held my own with Patrick, and so I really enjoyed that. So I thought there would be a nice opportunity to come back to work with him again, because I can't tell you how many times, Derek, I have people come up to me and tell me, like, what is going on. So one, no one ever contacted me, just for the record. Two, that maybe we should do our own kind of reboot. I don't know how we do that, because the character that was on there was actually a replicant. I actually made that character.
Right.
If you knew that.
Yes.
The real Bruce Maddox made like this faux Bruce Maddox so that he would get killed off in like the second episode or something.
Right.
And I think we should go back to it, because it was such an intriguing character, not only the play, but in the mythology of the science fiction of the Star Trek. I don't know how we do that, but I think it'd be really cool to kind of merge a lot of the robotics that's happening on the Caltech campus with a lot of the robotics that are being planned for outer space with JPL, and just to play around with the future and bring the real Bruce Maddox back in some guise. I don't know how that works.
I think it's plausible, and I will also say that like I said, just from listening, sometimes I find that the skill I've learned most over the years is just open up just listen, and when you listen to Star Trek fans talk, The Measure of a Man is a top 3 episode, if not the best episode they've seen on The Next Generation. So there's credence to that. So, I would never say never. If whoever's creating Picard has a pulse on what Star Trek fans want, I think you'd be backing it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'd be interested in what was that decision, and I don't know, why did they kill him off? What happened in that? They had to kill him off, right? Wasn't that what happened? Yeah,
and in the scene that you're talking about with Stewart, with Patrick Stewart, I just think that the roots of the fact that your views on Data and I don't know. I just think there's a lot there they could bring back. I don't know. That just without getting.
Oh, I agree. I've been in classes when I was working on my MFA out at UC Riverside. I remember I was in this existentialist class, and they were talking about the sentience of a human being, and the episode came up in this class, and then this other student in my class said, "Oh, we just talked about it in our legal studies class," and they're in the legal studies class that she was in. So I get this all the time, like all the different pathways that this opens up into, from sentience to robotics to jurisprudence to just being a friend to another person. And it's a fascinating And there's also, maybe you know about this. My friend Barbie Insua, who works up at JPL, she's a graphic designer. I mean, she turned me on to this. It was a neurodiversity episode that used the measure of a man to talk about sentience.
Wow,
it was freaking brilliant. I'll try to find it and send it to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So 1994, I'm a junior at Northeastern University in Boston, and we go see this movie. And by the time the Alan Green credit rolls up, I have tears in my eye. I can barely compose myself. I can't believe, Brian, that something so beautiful, and I'm not going to say majestic, but I'm going to say I could not believe what I just saw. I for the life of me, I can't explain it. And I've said that people listening are probably saying, "All right, Derek, this is like the 20,000th time you've said this." But I have to say it comes from the heart, and it's a fact. I mean, I'm getting choked up just telling you this now. I mean, I'm in full blown tears. I saw it 4 times opening weekend. I have never in my life seen anything, birth of my daughter aside, so beautiful, so authentic. Nothing has ever moved me like this. Nothing. And The Shawshank Redemption is the greatest movie in history. And I'm not one of these people, and I'm glad that people picked it up later in life, but I was there from the beginning, and I'm proud of that.
Oh, nice.
So Brian, how do you get involved with this thing? Because Frank Darabont puts together one hell of a cast. And when you're in a movie like this, there are no small parts, right? And in my opinion, you're in one of the top 3 in a movie full of majestical scenes and wonderful scenes. You're in one of the top 3 for sure. I guess. How do you get involved? Because and we're going to get into it. I think it's a big scene for a ton of reasons. But how is your involvement? And do you find? I'll let you answer that. Then I'll follow that up.
Do you want the quotidian, kind of the everyday, kind of boring aspect of this thing? Because that's kind of what happened. I auditioned for it, and you're really good for this, but we're not at this time. And so a month or 2 went by. Then all of a sudden I get a call like, "Can you go to Ohio?" I'm like, "Why?" "Well, you just got cast as the hearings officer in the Shawshank Redemption." I was like, "Why do I have to?" Because the person they had cast, who was a hearings parole officer, couldn't play the part. He couldn't play the part of a parole officer. So, like, oh, okay. So, jumped on a plane, showed up, came to the set, walked around. Because there's also the place itself is a real working prison too. It had the old prison that had been closed down, and then they had like a new prison. So I was, when I got there, I could walk into the new facilities and into some really scary places. And then they said, "Oh, now you have to come over to the old prison." So we go to the old prison. It is terrifying, Derek. Oh my gee! And they take me down to this basement. Like, we have to come down. There's like the PAs, and they're coming. Like, come on, you got to check out the basement. So I'm like, I don't want to. No, it's cool. Don't worry about it. So you go down into the basement of the Shawshank prison, and of course there's the skeletons hanging in the corner, and scared the hell out of me. But so that was getting to the middle of Ohio, and then Tim Robbins is an old friend of mine. He's like, I show up and he's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm in the movie, dude." And it's like, "Yeah." So that was really cool. And then, and then coming into the scene. Anyway, so that's, that was sort of getting there. That was sort of the getting there.
And when you watch the movie for the first time after it's put together, and I'm going to dissect your character in a moment, but like when you watch it the way I saw it when it was finally complete, are you blown away the way I was and the way millions of others were? Do you is it that type of is it like that for you, Brian?
Oh God, no one's ever asked me that either, Derek. You're good at this, man. You should be yourself a podcast.
I appreciate that.
Well, it's funny, so you show up and you're sitting in the chair, and then this African American actor walks over to me and says like, "Hey, so what's your name?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm Brian Brophy." Like, "Yeah, well, I'm Morgan Freeman. I'm playing, Red in the movie." Like, "Oh yeah, really cool." And so all of a sudden, I strike up this relationship with him just before we shoot. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. And then so Frank turns on the camera and then he he turns on the camera. And a lot of times you'll have big time actors will not be on the other side of the camera, right? Sometimes you'll have folks that will roll in and just do their on camera stuff and they'll leave. But Morgan actually sat on the other side of the camera, right? So the cameras are rolling and I'm actually acting across from Morgan Freeman. We're talking to each other as characters in the movie. And so when I first watched it, of course you're like, wow, that's a big image of me, right? And you see it up on the big screen, which is, kind of terrifying and gratifying. And, there's a certain objectivity I think you also have when you watch yourself, if you watched yourself before. But watching it, I always think back to the doing of it. You know what I mean? Like when you're watching it, you go back to what was the emotion, or what was the feeling that you were having when you were trying to do the scene. And so the thing that kind of surprised me was how still the stillness. Well, one, the stillness that Morgan had as an actor, and of my not giving away what was going to happen in the scene. Because that's what Frank said. Like, you cannot give away what you're going to do in the scene, that you're going to stamp the paper, right? You can't give that away. But you also don't want to be the smarmy RFK appointed, character in the scene either. So it was really interesting to play that, not giving anything away. But I think watching it, turn back to the emotion that's in that scene, and that's very gratifying to me. Actually, it worked. Frank's direction worked. Being able to have Morgan sitting across from me and watching me watching him. It's not looking at the edge of the mat, the mat frame of the camera box, right? You're actually seeing the human that's on the other side there. That's a powerful thing to be able to do, to have that person there. And then I know watching it and just watching Morgan barely, responds. I think he blinks a couple of times, but he's so simple and so clean as an actor, and he's so connected to who he is and what he wants. And, the 100 days or so of filming there in Ohio with Tim and company, you can really brings all of that to the table or to the chair that he was sitting in. And so it was a really powerful experience. Like one of the top 3 moments for me as a professional actor too, having that connection with another actor who's at the height of his powers too.
Yeah,
that's what's super great. It's not him, the Electric Company early days. It's not the Clint Eastwood film that he made a few years. It's like right in the sweet spot of him as a professional maker of images and characters.
Oh, that's well said. And for those listening, your scene is where Red's at his 3rd parole hearing. You really set that up so beautifully. He at this point, he tells your character he just doesn't give a shit. Do what you have to do. Just as a nerdy question here, Brian, do you think at that point, because the audience is watching this and Andy's out, right? So here comes this pivotal scene. This is Red's shot to join his best friend after years of just hell, torture, and misery. And it's all on your character. It's all on this hearing. And then when you see that stamp go down, holy shit, is everyone going nuts? Like, this is the beginning of something really, really special, Brian.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Is Frank a genius? Is Frank Darabont a genius? Because I think he is. I mean, I just don't know how somebody creates this. The Green Mile, obviously Stephen King gets huge kudos for that. But, creating these 2 works, especially Shawshank, it's perfect movie making. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think one of the reasons why it is perfect is because he shot so much footage too. And I think it was his first time as a director, and he shot a lot. And so I know there was a lot of concern among the editors and the producers that one, it was costing a lot of money to process all of that film, but people were afraid that he didn't know what he was looking for. Because a lot of times young directors will shoot a lot of film, right? And then because they don't know what they want so much, as people get older, or if you're Wim Wenders or whoever you might be, David Lynch, you kind of know what you want, or Hitchcock, you know what you kind of want. I think that was the concern that people had, is when they were looking at all of his footage, when looking at all the dailies, it's like, wow, this is going to take hours to look through this material. So I think that he was able to find because he shot so much, I think he was really able to find the marrow, or to find the tuitano, or the marrow of the characters. Sometimes people just first take, boom, he got it. He didn't work that way. I think we only did a couple of different. Morgan only did, I think, 2 takes of that scene. So he did a great job in casting that. And that movie is a work of genius. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I told this to the other 2 guests I had on from Shawshank. I had William Sadler and I had Mark Ralston on.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I told them that and you mentioned this is one of the top 3 moments being in this movie. But I mean, do you actually? I can't. There's nothing I can compare it to. Like being a part of this movie, I feel like I don't know. It's just I don't know how to put it, cultivate it in words. I just feel like. Do you feel like it's like? Do you consider it the best movie of all time? Do you feel like you've been a part of something that's uniquely special, never to be? I mean, this will never get remade, ever. I mean,
no, that's true. That they will not make it. I mean, of American films. I mean, if you think about American films, I mean, it's up there with Apocalypse Now, Goodfellas for me, and then Shawshank. I mean, those would be 3 of Little Miss Sunshine, of course. But yeah, you have those. I mean, that's up there with my favorite, films, like the top 3. Because it's a great film. I mean, it's just definitely up there with. I mean, I would think of films of the last 30 years. You know what I mean? That range. I mean, if you go back to Double Indemnity, you get other movies. But if you look over the last 30 years, I think these 3 films to me are 3 quintessential American films that are sort of my top 3. I would say.
Brian, what do you think it is? As you're a director, you're a guy who knows what he's doing. You love cinema. What do you think it is about this movie that really resonates with people? Because I feel like you read the comments on IMDb, you read comments on YouTube, you listen to the absolute majestic Thomas Newman soundtrack, all 53 minutes and 31 seconds, 21 songs. What is it that this movie, it puts its hands around people's hearts and it doesn't let go, not just when the movie's done, ever. And I don't want to sound over the top, but that's just a fact, Brian.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about this movie?
I think it's we want justice in some way, right? And I think that our society right now wants justice.
Yes.
I think they want some accountability for where the world is right now. And I think in some way the movie gratifies that redemptive spirit that we all have. We all fuck up in some way, right?
Right.
So we always want to be redeemed in some way, whether it's a small or a big way. I mean, there's just redemption, obviously, that the characters, the character, Andy's character, Andy Dufresne's character, has been wronged and set up, and all the different bad things that sometimes happen to us in real life. We have people that are always, making life for us difficult, right, in some ways. But in this case, the stakes are so high, right? The stakes are so high. And then we just see the corrupt practices within that bureaucratic penal colony and how one man, in this case, Tim, as Dufresne, gets redemption. That's what it is. I think we all relate to somehow being wrong in our society at a smaller or big level, that we want accountability. We want something to happen so that when that shoebox, right, when he goes out to the rock, the rock quarry out there.
So beautiful.
And he finds it. I mean, it's just, even the sound, right? Isn't there like the crow in the background when Morgan is walking through the field? Isn't that what turns his head?
Yeah, and Roger Deakins' filmography when he's walking back through the field, you could see the bugs. Like, it's just beautiful. That whole that whole 2 minute, 3 minute it's just stunning.
And it's so quiet too. I mean, it's so quiet, and you don't know quite what is going to happen. And also being an African American man in the mid 60s.
Yeah, and Red, you're right.
That he shouldn't be.
Yes, and Red's. And it's funny that you said because Morgan as Red is looking over his shoulders. Like he hears. You're right. He hears the bird. He's looking over both shoulders. Like, is somebody near? Is somebody coming? That is such a great point, Brian.
Am I getting set up?
Yeah. Is this for real? Like, yeah, that's such a great point. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, that is such a great point. And you're right. They've been wronged, right? But through it all, through the hell they both have been through, is this beautiful friendship that ends with the best bro hug in movie history. Do you know, Brian, how close they were? Do you know how close they were to cutting that scene out of the movie? And when they were showing it to test audiences, they're like, "Are you out of?" Yeah, they were close to cutting that out. Frank was going to leave it at the bus, and people are like, "Are you out of your test audiences? Are you out of your ever loving mind?"
I didn't know that.
So I have two questions.
Tim never told me that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have two questions left for you. Thank you for all this time. You're such a good man.
Yeah, sure. It's cool. I love talking about it. I love being asked about it too, because it's not, like you said, it's not something that I lead with. With what I'm working with students. Over the last 14 years with Caltech.
Oh, if I was at Caltech, this is all I'd be talking about with you. I mean, I appreciate. You'd have to get me thrown. But so they play Shawshank on a loop on like TBS and TNT. There's one positive in that, like it's played 24/7. It's playing somewhere always. I feel like on television, and it's a good thing in a sense that you're introducing a new generation to the best movie ever made. However, the problem I see is it's usually edited, and that is certainly not the vision Frank wants the people to see. It's the exact opposite of a director's cut. It's like it's just so mutilated. It's not at all what Frank wants. I think it does the movie a disservice. I wish they would stop playing it on a loop. Not because I don't want people to appreciate this work of art, but I feel like it destroys what the cast, what Frank, what everybody put together. Am I into something with that?
Well, I mean, come on, Derek. You got to sell appliances and supplements and Peloton, and make us feel guilty for not getting enough Christmas presents for the people in our lives, like all of that. So you got to have those things in there, which I agree. It's completely. I actually, I have a hard time watching it. I don't actually usually watch it if it's all commercials like that, because what happens is that it cuts in so abruptly sometimes. Like you want to savor that moment, and the next thing it's Cialis for men, or it's like congenital heart disease. This is your, it's like what, So it's hard to watch it. I agree. I think it does the film a disservice, but I don't know how else you do that unless you put it on Netflix or Amazon or wherever.
What do your kids say about your filmography, especially Shawshank? What do your girls say about it? Are they do they love the movie as much as I do? Are they proud of Dad up on the screen and the most pivotal scenes of the movie?
I definitely get bragging rights when they're talking to their friends.
Nice.
They definitely got bragging rights. Especially for Shawshank, I think it's always that's definitely up there. It depends on who they're talking to. Sometimes it's like, oh, you were in Max Headroom. Like, wow, you were in Max Headroom. Or there are certain things that I've done that I'm really proud of and that are super cool, that are kind of edgy and offbeat that you never get to see either. Although I do get residuals. I still got an 11-cent residual from like Father Dowling episode, which is so funny.
That's great. The last question, you mentioned Tim Robbins a few times. You are in Cradle Will Rock, which has an unbelievable cast. So does Tim remember you? Because that's 99. So that would have been like what 5 or 6 years after Shawshank. Does Tim remember you? Because he directed. For those listening, does he know you? Does he bring? Do you guys share a moment there? Was that? How does that happen for you?
How does what happen?
Your role in Cradle Will Rock. How does that come about? Does Tim remember you from Shawshank?
So Tim and I go back to, we're at a theater company called the Actors Gang.
Gotcha.
Jeremy Piven, Johnny Cusack, Fisher Stevens, Kerry Armstrong.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was a crazy bunch of super Jack Black was there. I mean, there was a super talented group of just crazy motherfuckers that would just do just about anything. And so we started doing a lot of avant-garde, agitprop theater, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90s, through all the 90s up until about, I think my last show was like 2000. I started teaching college more. But Tim has directed me multiple times in the theater, but also I was in Bob Roberts. I actually the voice. I don't know. Maybe you didn't know this. I am the voice of. Have you seen Bob Roberts?
Of course, of course.
So my voice is the last voice you hear in that.
Oh, okay.
So Tim directed that. I was also in Cradle Rock, of course, and then. We were in Dead Men Walking. We were more of the Walla Walla group in the background, which was super fun to do.
Yeah.
What else? And then he was in Shawshank, obviously. And then what am I forgetting? I'm forgetting something else. But so yeah, we've known each other for a long time, and he really keeps this theater company going. The Actors Gang, and they're still going strong. And Tim is so committed. To live theater and to a lot of the work that he's doing in prison right now, which I think is just really awesome work, and bringing the Commedia dell'arte style that we had, that we all did as theater makers in the mid '80s up until still doing it right now. But there's a certain style of theater called the Commedia dell'arte that we adapted from Minushkin, which is this theater company in France, etc. But that. Tim is really committed to making theater and to continuing to make live, engaging theater. And I really I love him so much because of just our friendship, but also because he makes live theater happen. And I think that not a lot of people do that. I think a lot of folks, when they get to a certain kind of peak of their success, they're just kind of on their own, but Tim really gives back. So yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah. Speaking of good dudes, so are you. And I have to say, and I mean this, Shawshank absolutely changed my life. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about that movie. And you're one of the people I have to thank for that. Thank you for being such a wonderful, having such a big impact in my life. You could say, oh, it was this, it was that. You're one of the people responsible for it, and I truly, Brian, I can't thank you enough for all your wonderful work and the work that you continue to do on stage. And I would love to see you back in TV and movies again. But you're certainly talented in both avenues.
Well, wow, Derek, that's pretty cool. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we got to keep making things, right?
Yes,
we got to keep making things, and that's the key to being an artist and being involved with the creation of new stuff. And we have to keep making really good, edgy, compelling material, because that's the only way we're going to kind of break through into this expansion of who we are and how we survive together.
Yeah, that's so well said, Brian. I can't thank you enough for giving me all this time, and
I appreciate the time, and thanks for asking all those cool questions and making it all make sense in some way. Help it make sense of the journey here.
Absolutely. You and your family stay healthy, Brian, and thank you so much.
You too, brother.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you can also connect with Monday Morning Critic on Instagram and Facebook, MDM Critic on Twitter, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts are found. All episodes available, www.mmcpodcast.com.